episode of the NHL Low Down. My name is Jeremy Schooler. A week hiatus, week off last week, but we are back on with plenty to talk about and plenty going on across the league. Both good news, bad news, exciting news, all different aspects of the league in action and firing on all cylinders lately. To start with, the defending Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning have vaulted themselves into first place in the entire league, tied with the Washington Capitals at 50 points. They're the only two teams with 50 points. Rounding out the top five, Carolina at 49, New York at 48, it's the Islanders, obviously, and Florida at 48. Now, speaking of Florida, an unfortunate situation for them yesterday as their former first-round pick, former first overall pick, Aaron Ekblad, their defenseman, been with the Panthers his whole career. Unfortunately, looks like he broke his leg as he was stretchered off the ice with a leg injury last night. He took a hit into the corner and was not able to get up. His leg did look like it kind of bent backwards. Really unfortunate, terrible sight to see. And well wishes sent out from across the league to him. Florida head coach Joel Quenneville said, quote, he said so many games where he's dominant defensively, but it's his offensive contribution, joining the attack, adding a different dimension to our power play. You couldn't ask for anything more because, of course, this was on the power play when Ekblad was hurt. And Quenneville did say that he would miss, quote, extensive time, which was very apparent by the play. And it wasn't a dirty hit, but Esa Lindell, Dallas defenseman, got tied up with Ekblad's skate got kind of picked in the ice a little bit. An unfortunate situation as Florida looking to make a deep playoff run as they've played very well all year at 22-9-4 right now. 2 points out of the league lead at 50 points. But unfortunately for them, third in their own division as Carolina is 1 point ahead, Tampa's 2 points ahead. So despite being top five in the league, Florida would open the playoffs as a road team in Raleigh. But still, Florida season going very well for them, much better than pretty much anyone would have expected. As I said, they are in third place, comfortably in a playoff spot, as Nashville, the fourth place team in the Central Division, 11 points back. So as of now, it would be Tampa, the number one seed, playing Nashville, Carolina, a point back, playing Florida. So really, the difference between 1 and 2 in the Central Division is massive. As one could play a team like Nashville or Chicago or Columbus, who are certainly not very good. They're kind of very mediocre and probably wouldn't make the playoffs in a normal year. Nashville's record right now, 18-17-1, so exactly 500, really. Chicago's 16-15-5. I mean, these teams are very mediocre. It's really a three-team race in this division, and any of the three of them could win the division. Clearly, Tampa's the favorite, but Carolina has only one regulation loss in their last 10. Carolina and Florida both on multiple game winning streaks. Nashville, who started the season pretty terribly, vaulted themselves into that fourth playoff spot with 5 straight wins and 7 of the last 10. But so as of now, the Central Division, really a three-team race, and they're all racing for that first spot so they can have the privilege of playing one of the lesser teams, Nashville, Chicago, Columbus, possibly even Dallas. I don't think Detroit, but really playing any of those teams would be the prize for winning the division. As Carolina, Florida, and Tampa fighting for that playoff spot. Florida, of course, as I said, down Aaron Ekblad, unfortunately, but still very much in the race. Jumping over to Washington, tied to the league lead in points with Tampa with 50. There's the only two teams with 50 points. Washington's been on an absolute tear lately. That's my hometown team, so I've been paying extra attention to them. 23-7-4, 9-1 in the last 10, 3-game winning streak, plus 20 goal differential at this point. Just absolutely firing on all cylinders. 13-4-2 at home, 10-3-2 on the road, just absolutely coming together. And the key to that is, as it has been for about 15 years now, 16 years or so, the key is Alex Ovechkin. As Ovechkin with 18 goals. There was a point in this season, near the beginning of the season, where he was 13 goals behind the goal leader, Auston Matthews. And of course, Matthews, one of the biggest stars in the game, and he is, going to be a future version of Ovechkin leading the league as like, an older guy like this. I can see that as McDavid and Matthews kind of trade punches as the two stars in the league. But Ovechkin now just 4 goals behind Matthews. And you look at the list of league leaders in goals, it's Matthews with 21, McDavid with 20, or sorry, Matthews with 22, McDavid with 21, Rantanen with 19, Draisaitl 19, Toffoli, DeBrincat, Pacioretty, and then below Ovechkin, Kreider, and Kyle Connor. And most of those guys are very young. Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid. Austin Matthews is 23. Connor McDavid also 23. These guys, Rantanen, Rantanen 24. I mean, guys, much on the younger side, and then you just have Alex Ovechkin at 35 and a half years old, still absolutely tearing it up. So very impressive by him, and he's led Washington on this stretch. They have vaulted into the league lead, especially with other teams in their division, such as Philadelphia and Boston, really kind of falling off. Boston has not been playing well over the past month, really. They've fallen all the way down to the 4th playoff spot and kind of well behind Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, another team, an older team, older stars, who many after last year, after they were swept, predicted to not make the playoffs. And they have. I mean, they're comfortably in a playoff spot, 7 points ahead of Boston. So right now in the East Division, it would be Washington against Boston and the Islanders against Pittsburgh. Philly is 3 points out of a playoff spot. And frankly, as a Washington fan, I would say I'd rather Washington play Philly. As Philly just played terribly. Carter Hart is all over the place. He doesn't even look like an NHL goalie at this point. And in Washington, New York, Pittsburgh, Boston all have comfortable goal differentials. I mean, Boston's plus 10. The rest of them are all in the plus 20s. And even in 6th place, the Rangers have a plus 15 goal differential. The Flyers in 5th place have minus 18. And, they're the only team in the division other than New Jersey and Buffalo, who are 2 of the worst teams in the league, who's allowed over 100 goals. They've allowed 120. And that really all comes back to Carter Hart. The defense hasn't been great for Philadelphia. But in addition, Carter Hart has just played awful. And I live relatively close to Pittsburgh, to Philadelphia. Going to college in Pennsylvania, so I'm surrounded by a lot of those Flyers fans, and they are all frustrated with him because he cannot find his game. And Carter Hart, he's had these issues for a while. He's a very young guy, so you can't really blame a 22-year-old that much. But he is at the heart of the Flyers' struggles. So there is an idea that perhaps he could use some time in the HL or going down to the minors. But Carter Hart has just not found his game. I mean, he's been all over the place. He high glove on him seems to be like an empty net at this point. They just you got to feel for them. They thought they found their guy, but they haven't. So Philadelphia clinging on to any hope of getting a playoff spot. I mean, before the year they were one of the favorites to win the division. Now 3 points behind Boston and only 2 up on the Rangers. And the Rangers, of course, who have beaten them 9-0 and 8-3 over the past 2 weeks. Mika Zibanejad had 12 points, 12 points in 2 games against the Flyers. That's just mind-boggling to even hear. But the Flyers just not in a good situation right now. Moving on to the West Division. So the Central Division, the way the Central Division is with Tampa, Carolina, and Florida, all easy top 3, and then everyone else kind of fighting for that 4th spot way behind. That's exactly how I assumed the West Division would play out this year. I assumed it would be in some order: Vegas, Colorado, St. Louis, and then, Minnesota, Arizona, and then whoever the best California team is, the 3 of them fighting out for the last spot just to get swept or something. And it has not turned out like that at all. Vegas and Colorado, both in 1st and 2nd place fairly comfortably. They have been all year. 47 points for Vegas at 23-8-1, 46 points for Colorado at 21-8-4. But then Minnesota, 43 points. They are right up there, and they have been for a while. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They are just absolutely on fire. And they're only 3 points back in Colorado, but they're comfortably in a playoff spot. In that St. Louis is 5 points behind them, and Arizona 6. So they're 6 points ahead of a playoff spot. And if St. Louis, I mean, as I said, I assumed Vegas. I assumed my prediction for the year for the order of the division was Vegas, St. Louis, Colorado, and it's Vegas, Colorado, then St. Louis, like a big drop. So St. Louis is only a point ahead of Arizona, clinging onto that playoff spot. And they're 2-5-3 in their last 10. They have not been playing well. And they're really barely hanging on to one. They lost to the Ducks last night, and that's not a good Ducks team. 11-19-6. The Ducks are in last place in the division, and St. Louis falls to them in overtime. If St. Louis has any hope of kind of going on a run, because theoretically the good teams will eventually overlast the bad teams, in theory they should jump Minnesota and fight with Colorado or Vegas for that second spot. But they have not looked like a team that can do that. Minnesota's been playing great all year. And my current predictions for the end of the season for the West Division would be Colorado in first, then Vegas, then Minnesota. I'm convinced of them at this point. They played 32 games, 24 left, and they have showed that they're a great team. 21-10-1, and they've been able to play with the best of them. Like, as this goes back to the goal differential conversation, they're not as good as Vegas and Colorado, whose goal differentials are plus 30 and plus 38, but Minnesota goal differential plus 16, St. Louis is minus 13. So minus 29 difference is important. And I do think St. Louis will probably end up holding on to that fourth spot, but it wouldn't shock me if Arizona was able to grab it from them. I don't think the California teams, any of them, are doing anything. LA was actually playing pretty well for a while relative to their expectations, but they have 32 points right now. They need to make up 6 points over the final 20 games to catch St. Louis. I really don't think that's likely. Now that brings us to the final division, the one that is probably most enticing and most interesting for most of our viewership up in Canada, the Scotia North Division. The Canada Division, which has certainly been fun, the most different by far of any division, and then a normal season, has been very fun all year. Toronto looks like they had looked like for a while that they were just going to coast with the division. They certainly are not. They have 46 points right now. Winnipeg has been on their tail for about 3 weeks, just all over them, and then beat them twice in a week. So Toronto 46, Winnipeg 44, Edmonton 43, Montreal 37. So this is another division where three teams are pretty comfortably in a playoff spot by at least 6 points. And that fourth spot kind of being fought for Montreal, Calgary, Vancouver, all within 3 points. So the top three, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Toronto, within 3 points. And then the next three fighting for that last spot, Montreal, Calgary, and Vancouver, all within 2 points. So going to be very exciting there as those teams work to figure out there's a final playoff spots. By far the division with the most teams in it. Really everyone but Ottawa has a shot. Vancouver has looked pretty terrible all year, and they have a minus 20 goal differential. They have not they've been one of the more frustrating teams all year based on how their fans have reacted. They especially with their recent travel situation, but the Canucks, even still, they're very much in it. 35 points, 2 back on Montreal for that fourth spot. So the Canucks, Flames, the Habs, all fighting for their last playoff spot, probably to play Toronto. But the thing is, for a team like the Canucks, who started so slow in a shortened season, where each game is worth, game and a half. Each game is worth more than in a normal season. They're going to need to pick up points and get hot at some point. I mean, you can't not get hot all year, and that's kind of, they've just been sticking around, but they haven't been playing very well. Their last 2 games, they've gotten blown out by Winnipeg, down 9-1 in 2 games at home to Winnipeg. So you can't be playing like that, even though Winnipeg has been playing great. They beat Ottawa. It took them overtime to beat them two times last week against Ottawa, but those games you obviously have to win. Close games against the Habs will always help, but coming up soon, they have a game against Calgary, and then a bit of a long road trip, very long road trip, at Edmonton for 1, at Winnipeg for 2, at Calgary for 2, at Edmonton for 2. So that's 7 straight road games. If they can pick up like 11 points in those, that would be huge. They just need to get hot on some stretch, especially against teams like Calgary, like Edmonton, like Winnipeg. So the Canucks is I think the most interesting team at this point, in that they've seemed to be written off a while ago, and that's not, wasn't crazy to write them off, but now you really don't know, because they're still in it, in that playoff hunt. Speaking of the Flyers, as bad as they are, they will look tonight, going into the game, they're going to think, well, they're going to feel like the Lightning playing the Red Wings last year or something, because Flyers tonight playing against the Sabres, the biggest dumpster fire in the league. In my opinion, the worst franchise in all of sports. The Buffalo Sabres at 6-23-4 with a minus 50 goal differential. They've only scored 68 goals this year. I led 118. 2-11-2 at home, 4-12-2 on the road. They're very misleading just because of the loser point and the way the fact that overtime losses are different. They're defined as technically only being on a 9-game losing streak. Technically, they've lost 9 straight regulation games, which in and of itself is pretty ridiculous. But that losing streak is actually far longer because they lost in overtime before that and then lost a bunch more regulation games. So they've lost 9 straight in regulation. Before that, lost in overtime to Philly, but then lost, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 15, 16, 17. Yeah. Buffalo's last win was February 23rd against New Jersey. Since then, they've lost in overtime to New Jersey, lost back-to-back 3-0 games to the Flyers, lost to the Rangers, just blown out by the Islanders 3 straight. I mean, they're just getting blown out by everyone. Blown out by Washington 6-0. I mean, they didn't win a game all of March, and now that is just kind of insane to me to even hear. A team that goes a full month, well over a full month. At this point, it's been 6.5 weeks without a win for them. I mean, you got to feel for them. And then Eric Stahl, the long veteran, he won a cup already. It's not like he was cup chasing, but that was 14 years ago, and they just traded him to Montreal. And he was asked, and he's always been professional. He was asked, what was it like? What does Buffalo do from here? Once he was traded to Montreal, and his response, I don't really have to respond to it anymore. I'm not on the team. But the Sabres, 16 straight losses, ties the 2002-2003 Penguins for the second longest single season winless streak since 2000-2001. The only team worse, the 03-04 Penguins at 18 games. Now, if there's any hope, anything positive for the Sabres, it's that obviously those 03-04 Penguins, after that, were able to draft Sidney Crosby. So who knows? But the thing with the Sabres is that they have a star, and it's not like he was a bust. I mean, Eichel's certainly not McDavid, but he's not a bust. He plays. He's great. Eichel's awesome, and they still can't build around him. But the Sabres, their winless streak. So the second longest single season winless streak since 2000. It has lasted over 970 minutes straight of ice time. And of those 970 minutes, Buffalo's been leading for only 110 of them. Only 4 of the 16 losses have come by a single goal. 11 of them have come by 3+ goals, which is just mind-boggling. 5 of them by a shutout. I mean, just they've had a bunch of COVID issues. Taylor Hall said it's a season of unfortunate events. We're just ready for it. Now, I don't even know what that means really, but they signed him in the offseason. Somehow he chose voluntarily to go to Buffalo, which doesn't make any sense. I don't know why he did that. But 17 points for Taylor Hall. He has barely scored. I mean, nothing for anyone. It's just he's got 2 goals, and he was their big free agent signing. So really, who knows? But that'll do it for us today. So we're going to end on that Buffalo note. The lesson of today's show is, unless you're from Buffalo, I'm very sorry. Be happy you're not a Sabres fan. I'd rather be a Thrashers fan than a Sabres fan at this point. I mean, it's just a terrible situation. Hopefully, for the Flyers' sake, they can get back on track. Tonight, they play them, but tonight, Flyers, Sabres, Isles, Pens, Oilers, Leafs, Ducks, Avs, Kings, Knights, Jets, Flames, Wild, Sharks. So a lot on tap for tonight, and we will talk to you next week. Until then, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching here on Spanglish Sports World Zingo TV. My name is Jeremy Schooler, and I will see you next week.